in the house. Woo woo! So happy to have you on.
Likewise.
Let's start at the beginning, I guess we could say. Where did your journey with horses start? Like, when did you start to get involved, and like, what's your beginning experience with horses?
So the second that I could speak, I'm pretty sure my first word was horse or something line of horse. As soon as I saw a horse, I'm pretty sure I fell in love. I literally had I still have it actually. I look at it every once in a while. Just me with horses. Everywhere we went, Amish country, Yukon, fairs, anywhere that we would pass by a horse, my family had to stop and take a picture of me with the horse. And I literally have a photo album of me with horses from a very, very young age.
You got bit by the bug.
Oh, I got bit so hard. So I didn't even need to. The bug just crawled past me and I was like, I'm in.
Love it. I love it. That's awesome.
So then I got into riding lessons at a young age. My first little pony that I rode, her name was Susie Q. She was a little pony of the Americas. She was adorable. I took my first full slide down her neck, trying to give her a hug, and she put her head down. I just went boop, 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 and slid all the way down. So she was my first lesson pony. And then I graduated slowly up to a large warm blood named Top, who all I did was show on him, and that was it. I won my first reserve champion on him at a young age, and then I got run over by a horse that somebody lost control of at the same show. But I still loved them. And I got back up, and I was like, I'm ready for the costume show. Let's do it.
Oh, so you got run over?
Yeah, somebody lost control over their horse, and I didn't see it because I was just in my glory, just staring at all of them, and she just took me out. But I was young and nimble at that point in my life, so I popped up like a spring daisy, and I was like, it's fine, everything's fine.
That's crazy. That's like, you're like in your glory, and then like somebody wipes you out, like exit stage left.
I was happy. I had my ribbons. I had my little helmet, my little breeches that I would look at. And I'm like, how did I ever fit in those? That's nice for me.
Oh. I love that. I love that. So you had some interesting beginnings. That's pretty awesome, right? Like bit by the bug, trampled, but you won. It's fine.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about you just to give people some context and framework. So you're a licensed therapist in Connecticut. You have a private practice. So let's talk a little bit about how you kind of got into that and where the horses tie in, just to kind of bridge the gap for people.
Absolutely. So my private practice is Strides of Hope. I have to thank my wife. She came up with that name. And then the logo is actually the outline of my first horse, who kind of inspired me to do this, Fire. So that's pretty cool. I actually, in high school, the one thing I told myself I would never, ever, ever be is a social worker. Here I am. Things can change. I actually went to school to be a probation officer. I worked in corrections, detention, probation, law enforcement, the court system. None of that felt really right to me. And then I actually ended up at, totally not planned, for my internship in grad school, Ebony Horsewoman in Hartford, Connecticut. And that's what completely brought this into my life. I was like, I didn't even know this was a thing. This is incredible. I had taken a long hiatus from horses because I had gotten into a very bad accident. So I switched to motorcycles. That didn't turn out super well either. So we just jumped.
Iron horse.
The iron horse that my father was not super pleased with. So we switched horses. I fell in love with the idea of using horses for therapy and just watching the work that they did. I worked with a woman there underneath her. Her name was Harriet. She was incredible. The staff there were incredible and just very supportive and teaching me and giving me that experience. From then on, I actually changed my degree from criminal justice to forensic and community psychology. So I went to University of New Haven for my graduate degree. From there, I just got involved with learning about PATH and learning about EGALA and learning about the different types of equine psychotherapy, equine assisted learning. From there, jump a little bit forward. I did get into social work, and I was working in New York City, in Harlem with kids, came back to Connecticut, worked in Hartford for a few years. I was not licensed yet. So I recognized if I really, really want to move forward in this, I need to be licensed. So I had to take more classes, obviously take the licensure exam, which was a breeze. While I was working on getting my licensure is when Fire kind of came into my life. At this point in time, I still didn't think I could personally do this. I was just trying to work on getting licensed to, obviously get a pay increase at my job. And because it's pretty cool to have like letters after your name. I always thought that was great. So
I love that.
The things that entice and incentivize me, right?
Right.
So I ended up working a little bit at that job in Hartford, and with Ebony Horsewoman, I would actually bring clients there. And I had some extremely moving sessions there. I had one session where the clients that I was working with didn't even speak English. They spoke 100% Spanish, and the session just brought everybody to tears, including the client's mom was there, his sister was there, I was there. It was just very powerful. And I was like, I need more of this in my life. Moving even more into the future, either 2019 or 2020, I decided to, after I passed my licensure exam, I started working in Willimantic with a program that was grant funded through DCF called United Community and Family Services. I had a super supportive supervisor, and the whole agency in and of itself was very supportive. And I just had the idea of, this is something that I want to do some days. I would love to be able to utilize my own horses within therapy. Very supportive. Constantly, we're kind of like checking up on my horse, who was a rescue horse. And I did get licensed when I was within that program. And that's when in 2020, I think, I decided to start Strides of Hope LLC. Unfortunately, it didn't kind of move off the ground for a year because COVID's lovely, and that, set everybody back, including myself. So I started at literally the perfect time. Instead, working with what I had just moved my horse to a retirement facility that was very kind of easygoing, laid back. There wasn't a lot of people there, but I wanted to work on desensitizing her. So that's when Fire and I started going for walks around the neighborhood, and word got out. The Journal-Inquirer picked up on it. There was another newspaper that, I apologize if you're listening to this, I don't remember the name. It was a smaller newspaper. And then NBC Connecticut came out and kind of filmed us and did a little segment on us.
We'll have to link that, by the way, in the show notes. I just want to say that first. So we'll link that so people can actually see what you and Fire did.
So NBC Connecticut picked up on what we were doing, because what I was actually doing was going for like 2 or 3 mile loops that was actually being posted on Facebook. And I would go visit elderly people that couldn't leave their house. I would go visit kids that couldn't leave their house, people that were far away and kind of not on my loop. I would post the times that we were going, and they would drive up, and Fire would stick her head through their window, and the kids would get to see the horse. So
you really brought a lot of smiles to people during a non-smile period of life, basically. COVID.
People would wait to hear her hoofbeats coming down the street, and they would cut up apples, which she unfortunately can't eat anymore, but carrots or have little treats or peppermints.
That's so cool.
She was just like, okay, I'll exercise and get fed along the way. I'm down for this. So it was really nice. And that was kind of the first step towards Strides of Hope.
Yeah.
But it really kind of jumped off in July of 2021 is when I completely started working for myself for private practice. The horses, we had also adopted Clover, who's our 37-inch with a 17-hand attitude miniature horse. She's wonderful. So she was right at the beginning of my business kind of opening up. That is actually how I got my wife to allow me to adopt a second horse. It's always nice. It's for business, honey.
Exactly. I love that.
So I started working 100% for myself in 2021. I did struggle with utilizing the horses at that point in time, because where she was, ensuring that the client's information and HIPAA and confidentiality is 100% secure, unfortunately couldn't be done at that last location that the horses were at. So most recently in June of 2022, when we were finally able to purchase our own farm, things have really hit it off from there, and people have nobody ever wants to leave after their session. It's a wonderful thing for them. It sets me back a little bit on my schedule. Right. I can't say I blame them. I honestly can't. So
right.
Where we are today, the winter has kind of put a damper on things, because I do not, unfortunately, have an indoor. So if anybody wants to donate one, I'm always open to that. So we've been working with what we have, even just being with the horses and listening to them chew grass while it's raining out, or grass in the winter. Hay is very therapeutic, and brushing them, spending time with them, kind of working through things with having that electromagnetic field of that giant heart just pulsating around you is in and of itself therapeutic. We're working with what we have, and we're up to probably about 10 sessions a week with the horses, and looking at potentially 15 to 20 a week with the horses, alternating which horse we use so that the horses need a break too. So
Yeah, that's an awesome setup, and also giving a little bit of variety too, to the horses and the people that, you're working with, and giving them all a break too. I mean, they all have unique gifts that they offer your clients too, which is super special. That's great. And what would you say, like, since starting Strides of Hope and like getting more involved and immersed in the horse industry, what's been your experience so far with what you're doing? Have you been well received? Are you facing any challenges with bringing your business into the horse industry? And what's been kind of your experience since starting?
So initially, I did get some criticism from individuals who shall not be named that didn't believe Fire could be the horse needed for these types of therapeutic sessions because they saw and where she came from. And when I first got her, how much she was struggling.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that makes the best type of therapeutic partner that I could possibly have because she is not dissociated. She is so in tune with her needs, her wants, with vocalizing those. And we worked really hard on vocalizing them in a safe way, and she's phenomenal with it. She will tell people what is uncomfortable for her, what she likes, what she doesn't like, what she needs to feel safe, but she'll do it in a way that is completely safe.
And just to give people, not to interrupt you, but just to give people a little bit of background, do you mind sharing just a little framework of maybe Fire's background so people have context to maybe why she has a unique way of expression and why you like to prepare people for that unique expression and communication?
Absolutely. So I did adopt her at, we're not 100% sure, either 15 or 16 years old. The past history that was given to me was that she was abused. As far as the abuse that she accrued, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I was given some details.
Yeah.
They're more so ideas, so I wouldn't feel 100% comfortable kind of throwing that because I wouldn't want to upset or hurt anybody. But she definitely was abused. She was not comfortable with being handled, with being brushed. She had thrush when I first got her, so she was in a lot of discomfort. Her never been done by a farrier. They were done by her past owner, who was not a farrier. I don't believe Kay, you did her teeth for the first time, and I mean, they were rough. She hadn't had her teeth done God knows how long. She has chronic ulcers, and she has some gut issues from the amount of stress that she's gone through. So she's very protective of her body because of what she's gone through. I know she was hit a lot, and then she was starved. So when we adopted her, she hated. And she just really struggled with trusting that people's intentions were pure. I don't blame her at all, because most people that she met, they did not have pure intentions. They had controlling intentions. You need to do what I'm asking you to do, or I'm going to punish you. She now comes into every session with asking people, what are your intentions? And she comes into those sessions with a defensive but safe. So she'll put her ears back. She'll kind of look at you sideways. Her nostrils will get a little long. You can see the tension in her shoulders and her jawline. She'll suck her stomach up a little bit. But as soon as she recognizes the individual's intentions and that the individual's intentions are pure, she relaxes. And she says, all right, we're going to have to build this to get further than this, but I'm recognizing that you're not going to hurt me. So she did come from a place where a lot of people were afraid of her. A lot of people, I actually was told to euthanize her. That's how strong her opinions were at that time. And her trauma. She just had really bad trauma. So that was her. She has come a very long way. I've had 3-year-olds leading her around. She gives rides to little children. She deals with all the people that I bring here. She deals with me. That's a lot. That says a lot.
It's not that bad.
That's true. So
very cool. Thank you for sharing that about Fire, because I think too, like, a lot of people that might be listening to this have either had experienced ownership with a horse that has had kind of a treacherous type of background, whether it's abuse or training errors or accident prone, or things that have happened negatively to their horse that they're kind of unpacking themselves. So I think it's helpful to kind of give context to, you're taking this horse that was once used for, in a way, negative, bad things, right? It was, it was conditioned to believe, if be submissive, they would be abused. And so it's something that is very common, unfortunately. And I think bringing more awareness to it and awareness to what you're doing with Strides of Hope, taking that narrative and you're flipping it on its head for the good. And she actually, as we both know, horses love to have a job. They love to have a position. They love to, whether it's with the herd or with their humans, they like to know that they're being used in a good way, because I think that's really why we're all here. We all have a purpose. We all have, a position to fill that only we can fill. And so I think it brings like an authentic meaning to every horse when you put it in environments like you are with Strides of Hope, where they're able to help, they're able to take maybe what negatively happened and impact their life and using that to help a human that may not have experience with horses and help them connect bridges in their own recovery through their own trauma. And it's so important. Like the work that you're doing is so important. And so I love that despite maybe some of the criticism you've been getting, that maybe awareness like this interview may kind of shift people in their thought process with, therapy with horses or therapy in general. Maybe get some of that stigma away.
So the one thing that's really, really important that I would want people to be aware of is individuals that are thinking about starting up a trauma-focused equine-assisted psychotherapy practice, or even equine-assisted learning, equine-assisted therapy. Just because I'm saying that it's good that she's outspoken and that she recognizes her wants and needs and she's not dissociated doesn't mean that every horse that responds that way is going to be appropriate. What's most important is the connection that I have with her and my ability to communicate with her and read her and understand her. We had to have that connection. Otherwise, this wouldn't be possible. I have to trust her fully, and she has to trust me fully in bringing these new people in and meeting her and allowing them to, consenting to touch her. That's a big thing, to consent to touch them. We as humans need consent to be touched, and horses should require the same thing and should be given the same respect. Just because they're animals and we gawk at them does not mean that we should just automatically just run up and touch them. So there's a lot of sessions that I do with people where it's just observing her and you actually don't get to touch her, and giving her the respect and the dignity of the animal that she is, and allowing for her to consent and come up and say, okay, I'm ready for this. I just want to put it out there as kind of a note that not every horse, you have to build that connection first, being the therapeutic provider, the licensed professional or the equine specialist, to provide the horse the comfort and the ability to be able to respond appropriately in those ways, to continue to look out for them as well.
100%. 100% agree with you. That's really great putting that out there, because I think a lot of people too may run into this head on without actually thinking about the intention of, is this horse the right fit for this role? And do I have enough of a connection with this horse to then expose them to doing this type of work? And I think it's important to have those pieces in there, and knowing when it's not the right horse. I think that's, people try to make the horse fit the mold instead of finding the right mold that fits the horse.
Absolutely.
And so I'm glad that you mentioned that, and you said that that's an important piece. Speaking of stigmas too, have you, with some of this criticism that you maybe received entering the horse world, have you been able to overcome any stigmas, or are there any stigmas around equine therapy, and what are those and how do we overcome those?
There's a lot. So as you and I know, and I'm sure a lot of horse people that are watching, everybody in the horse world thinks they're right. That's okay, as long as we're holding space for other people's values and other people's beliefs, and that your thoughts and your opinions about your horse might not be the same for somebody else's horse. And that's okay. The criticism has kind of diminished now that we've kind of established ourselves, and, some of these critics have come out and actually met Fire and where she's at now. And they're blown away, and, they kind of retract those what is the word I'm looking for? Retract those statements that they initially made about her, and kind of not trusting our connection and her dream, my dream, and working together and making this happen. So a lot of those have actually turned to support.
Awesome.
They've seen in their eyes kind of like magic, kind of just how, a horse that we were looking at not myself. They were, telling me to euthanize, or that she was too much horse for me, are now like, wow, look at this connection. Wow, look at the way that she's interacting with other people. Look at the trust that's being built there. Look at how she looks to you when she's feeling stressed or feeling anxious. So that's been wonderful. There are people out there, which this is, valid, and I'll hold space for it, that don't believe in this type of therapy. And that's okay. That's totally fine. There's a lot of people that do believe it. And that's kind of the community that's been supportive all along. I follow a lot of groups on Facebook that are very uplifting and, share their stories, share their tools, share any concerns that they have, or valuable information that could be helpful for other providers. So I've tried to rule out those more negative kind of critics, take in their information and hold space for it, but kind of just really allow more supportive networks, family, friends, colleagues, clients that really get a lot out of this work.
I love that. That's awesome. What would you say, like, with your particular role, you're doing like clinician work too, and working with, people with various backgrounds, various struggles. What would you say are challenges that you yourself face in your role, maybe within the horse world too? Just different things that maybe come up that are really like, giving you some pushback, and how have you been able to overcome some of those challenges? Whether it's with Strides of Hope or just you as a, licensed therapist, what are some things that come up for you that you've been able to kind of overcome?
So the first thing, as far as the horse world and kind of my experience recently and in the past, that I definitely had to do a lot of work on overcoming, two things. I'm a bigger rider, and that is sometimes looked at as not great in the horse world. So that's been something that I've really had to work on internally for myself.
Yeah.
And recognizing my horse will tell me if she's uncomfortable. So that's taken some time, because the horse world is not attuned to larger riders. Also being gay in the horse community.
Yeah.
Been quite a journey. Luckily, I'm a therapist, so I can kind of pick up on people's body language, and I can very quickly rule out the individuals that are comfortable versus the ones that are uncomfortable.
Yep.
I also primarily work within my therapeutic setting with the LGBTQIA+ community. There's not a ton of therapists that not only have the experience within the community, are part of the community, but that a lot of my clients haven't felt comfortable working with someone that's not understanding of the LGBTQIA+ community. So I've really provided a safe landing for individuals that haven't felt comfortable in therapy before.
That's
yeah, it's been
super important.
I always ask them, what gave it away? How did you know?
Yeah. I love it. And do you find that there is like a large LGBTQ plus community within the horse industry that maybe lacks support like this? Do you see that often?
It's hidden. I've found that it's hidden. And I've also found many individuals that I've worked with that have been part of the horse world when they were younger, and then found themselves as they developed and as they went through different, transitions in life, and, identified now as part of the community, the LGBTQIA+ community, actually were deterred from horses because of their experiences at barns. So now finding a therapist that is part of the community and offers to re-engage with horses has been a blessing for a lot of people.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. I not in that particular I mean, in some instances I've experienced similar things, but I think something that a lot of even young girls in general. I don't see a lot of young men. I don't have a lot of interactions with young men that are into riding and into the equine community. But I find that in my travels, a lot of people, for whatever reason, they just don't fit into a certain box. With either a trainer or a particular barn. They might be different. They might appear different. They might act different. They might have a different personality. Are shunned from barns. I mean, when I was a horse wrangler in upstate New York for a very religious camp that will not be named, my biggest dream in going there as a child, as a camper, was to become a horse wrangler. I wanted to be a horse wrangler. And when I became that, it was the worst summer of my entire life because I was treated poorly, and I hadn't even identified as anything at that point in my life, but I had such a negative experience that it actually got me out of horses for 5 years. And I'm thinking to myself, if I had a different training in my mind where I didn't hold, mentors' words, negative mentors, because there are both positive and negative mentors, if I didn't hold people's opinions at such a high value, what difference I could have made if I had just stayed in the horse world for those 5 years, or maybe I would have grown and become more educated and had more of an impact if I didn't allow that person to say such a negative thing that had such a huge impact on me that it stopped me from doing the thing I love. And I feel like so many people can relate to that, whether they come out or they maybe look different, or maybe they're, more masculine, or that maybe they're more feminine and they're a guy or whatever, and they just have this love for horses, but because they don't fit a certain mold, they're then exiled or discouraged from joining the horse world. And yet they could bring such a huge blessing and specialty with horses that could make such a lasting difference, that unfortunately are shunned and have this experience. And it's maybe their first love. Maybe horses is their first love, but because of that negative experience. So to say that, I mean, this is really an important point. Opening the door to what's different in the horse community, and recognizing gifting does not always come in the same package. Yep. Whether it's competitive, whether it's training, whether it's just being a practitioner of this, being a participant. You know what I mean? I think it's so important to be open to the natural gifts that horse people have. Usually, horse people, I find they're called at a very young age, and they either leave it for a long time and come back when they have the time and money and resources and whatever, or they are very young, they get bit by the bug, and they're obsessed. They're just obsessed for the rest of their life, and they don't know why, but they just are. They see a horse and they cry, or they feel this yearning inside. And it's like, it's so sad that, these instances happen. And it's great that you're creating a new door for people to walk through with your unique, authentic way of being you. And it's opening a door for other people that may relate. You know what I mean? I know I feel that way too. So I think it's phenomenal. I think that's a phenomenal thing.
And one awesome takeaway that's not necessarily I would classify as overtly therapeutic is every person that I've had, and I've actually had a few people's spouses come out because they were, their partner was just talking this up so much, and they were so excited about sharing their sessions. They were like, do you think Krista would mind if I came out and, I did a session with the two of you, or I met the horses? One huge takeaway is helping people, and the more that I can get this out there, the better, recognize that horses communicate with us. And, we see horses at fairs, at parties, at pony rides, carriage rides, and we think it's so cool, but we're never really looking at what the horse is communicating, allowing them to see the way my horses communicate and, their needs and their wants, and that they're more than just these giant, magnificent, beautiful animals, recognizing that some things out there that are portrayed to look nice having to do with horses are not what they're all wrapped up to be.
100%.
It gives them a lot more insight into the animal themselves, and people take that with them. And I've had people come back and say, I went to the Big E and I was able to recognize this within the horse barns, or, I saw this with the Clydesdales and like recognized discomfort or recognized that they were happy or that they were licking and chewing. Like they're starting to recognize what these things mean versus just it's cute. Even that kind of takeaway, in my opinion, is so powerful in being able to learn more about horses.
Right. I love that. And I mean, like I just said earlier, that can also be applied to being open to recognizing the gifting in others and people just being different, and maybe finding some relatable things in those differences too. So it's like you have to learn about people just as much as you have to learn about horses when dealing with both.
Yep.
You have to recognize subtleties in people just as much as horses, and that makes you better at whatever you're doing with both beings, essentially. So being the observer, being the Sherlock Holmes and trying to understand how people tick and how the horse ticks, and then the connection itself. Those are awesome points. I love that. I was also thinking too, like, say somebody, like we were just talking about, say somebody wants to get back into, getting involved with horses, or what if somebody's starting out and they're new to horses? Do you have any like pieces of advice from like a therapy standpoint on how they should approach connecting with horses if it's their first time, or if they just have the desire and they just want to get involved? Like, do you have pieces of advice or pieces of wisdom that you could impart to anybody listening that's new or wants to get involved?
So first I would ask kind of what are their dreams of becoming involved? Have you seen somebody riding a horse in a Western saddle and you thought that was super cool? And so, that's something that you would want to do. I mean, I know you've worked with cows and that's super cool with you and your horse, or, somebody jumping a horse and so you're looking, into jumping. Are you looking at just getting into lessons? Are you looking at just being around a horse? So, I mean, that would kind of be the first question that I'd ask is, what is your direction that you're looking into? I can say upon approaching horses here, because a lot of people, what do I do? What do I say to them? How do I respond to them? How do I go about asking them for consent? One thing that I try to have people do here is horses love mint. Love mint. And most people enjoy mint. Some don't. Totally fine. Holding space for you. So I actually have a bucket of mints here. And again, we always want to work with intention and positive attention.
Yeah.
So I'll actually unwrap a mint and give it to my client, allow them to chew it, and then allow them to blow into the horse's nose. Not touching them, but when we look at wild horses or even domesticated horses, when they meet nose to nose and they breathe into each other's nose to recognize intention and to meet one another. So if we can mimic that as much as we can being people, why not do that? So I'll give somebody a mint and have them kind of blow into the horse's nose. And usually people laugh. Some people have spit their mint out onto the horse. Because it's funny. It's like, why am I doing
Some of them don't mind. They'll just pick it up and say, thanks for the treat.
I'll say, let the horse eat that one. I'll give you another one. I guess I'm trying to answer your question the best that I can as far as the broadness of the question.
That's perfect. Yeah.
But as far as like wanting to get more into it and finding a place that you're comfortable, I think is the most important. There's a lot of places that offer all different types of work with horses. In my opinion, before you even meet the horses, meet the people, because you're not going to be comfortable around the horses if you're not comfortable around the people. Setting up a time to just chit chat with somebody, make it, take a walk around the farm, kind of look at the environment, look at how the horses are treated. That's really important. If you're going somewhere and somebody's, all excited about a program, but the horses are emaciated or sad or lethargic, or you're just kind of getting a weird vibe from the environment, then maybe that's not the best place to begin to re-engage or engage with a horse. But I mean, the comfortability is, in my opinion, providing a therapeutic setting, the most important piece of being the most authentic and genuine self around the horse. And that's when you get that true connection and you're truly present with them, which, again, in my opinion, is very important.
I love that. That's a great answer. And I think too, like, knowing what a good standard to follow is, you obviously want to see healthy horses. Horses, when they're being taken care of, they look healthy, they look happy. They're mostly in a free setting, whether it's a big paddock. These are
Yep.
like things that you can look for that kind of help you gauge whether or not they're in a good space. And you want to be in a good space too with, a horse that is feeling like they're in a good space. You want to be where that healthy, happy horse is.
Yeah.
And that usually, stems from the top, which is phenomenal advice that you just gave. Another question I have for you, where did you become inspired, or who inspired you to get into horses? Was it someone famous? Was it someone like a mentor? Like, what brought on this inspiration to connect equine and horses and using, the vein of mental health to kind of create this life of doing this every day? What was your inspiration?
So it's very funny that you asked me that, hoping that might be a question you would skip. Only because I have a good answer. I have a good response. I love it. I was looking at all the questions that you had kind of sent to me, and that was the only question that I couldn't answer. And I was asking myself, why am I struggling to answer this question? And I think because there's so much magnitude to that question, and so many different people and so many different events that have happened throughout my life that have really, kind of propelled me in one direction. And then I have somebody else propel me back in this direction. And kind of all of these people and all of these experiences have cumulatively gotten me to where I am now. I can say, as far as my business, as far as the horses, as far as having my business on my own property, my wife has exponentially supported every idiotic decision I've made, every financial decision I've made, every sporadic decision, wholeheartedly. So she's known since we first met that horses have been a big passion of mine. And, she trusts my decisions. She trusts my judgment, which she probably shouldn't sometimes. But my grandmother before she passed, very, very, very big support. She was also very similar in the sense of, I was a little kid and I was like, Grandma, there's horses in that field. Can we go see them? We don't know who owns them and whose field. She was all for it and gung-ho, and we would go climb up that field and go see a stranger's horses. She still is, because she's still around. But a lot of people actually, and this is probably going to sound weird, the people that told me I couldn't do it, the people that didn't believe in me, the people that put me down or invalidated me, gave me the driving force to not necessarily prove them wrong, but to prove myself right, to prove myself that I could do it.
As fuel.
Yeah.
Negativity. Yeah.
But I didn't hang on to it. It was more so of, okay, how can I do this better? How can I do this better? And if they're not going to validate me, how can I validate myself? So I think that was a huge piece of the work that I had to do on myself, is becoming a therapist, was looking inward instead of outward and taking everybody else's criticism or remarks or invalidating statements and recognizing I don't have to fill that mold for them. I can fill a mold for myself, and that's fine. Not a lot of positive support and a lot of unique support. We'll be strength-based here, because that's what I tell my clients if they're watching this. Yep, Krista, I knew you were going to go there.
I love that.
Always straight. The whole thing has just been such a huge journey for me in taking any advice or criticism or support, only holding on to the things and the pieces that are useful for me and disregarding the rest. I don't have to hold that. Everybody has the right to their own opinion, and I'm fine with that. And I've, radically accepted that everybody's going to have a difference in opinion sometimes, and that's okay.
I love that.
Into your question, I've had a lot of different supports. I mean, as far as grad school, as far as Ebony Horsewoman, I've met wonderful people that used to work at Mains and Motions, Soul Friends, All the King's Horses Equine Rescue. I mean, I've had just wonderful people that I've kind of met throughout my life that have been on my side. And that's been the true fuel.
That's awesome.
You, for the past multiple years, can't leave you out. You've been huge support for everybody. The times that I've been so overwhelmed, and I call this one at 11 o'clock at night because I'm like, please help me. And so calm, so reassuring. She's like, Krista, you're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. I don't know if any of you seen that meme where the dog is sitting there and the dumpster is on fire behind him. I was the dog at times, and Kay was like, don't worry, I'll find enough water to put this fire out. I got you. So you.
Love that. I love that. I'm happy to be. You have done that for me too. And I think that's what this is all about. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's going to be people that might not have the building words for us, but you can always change the meaning of something and make it useful for yourself, which it sounds like you've done. And I think too, it's really great to support each other. You know what I mean? When you're in a community like the horse world, like that's one thing that I really appreciate about the horse world is as cutthroat as it can be at times, everybody rallies. When there's horses involved, it's like all these people come out of the woodwork and they're like, how can I help? Like, what can I do? And that's something that I really appreciate about, and it's something I constantly observe too, is that people will rally. And when we're our best selves, we're there for each other. We're rallying, we're being supportive, and it feels good to support others, and it also feels good to receive that support. And so I love that that's something you just highlighted too, is, you know, and you know, a lot of people, you know, there's bad apples in every group, you know, there's, you know, or maybe not bad apples, maybe unique apples, you know, that don't always have the best intentions, right? I got you. I got you.
Strength-based approach.
That's right. But, you know, it's like, I think that when we operate from a good place and when we tap into that good place, which we all have access to, everything works better when we think about how we can help and serve others. And, you know, I don't know. I've always looked at life that way. I've always seen that service, it works for both. You know what I mean? And it's the thing that has the most impact, I think, in making things better. So I love that. I love that you do that. What's a couple things too? I know we're kind of like getting to the end here, but I wanted to ask a couple more questions before we close up. But one of the last questions is, what are some things, some tactics, strategies, things that you do on the daily with your horses that maybe we might be able to utilize and impact that just kind of, you know, help you on the day to day? What are some daily habits you have, some daily rituals that you have with your horses that maybe make the connection better or just makes your day flow better? What are some of those things that maybe we can adopt from you that you do on the daily?
So I can tell you every morning that I get up at the butt crack of dawn and it's really cold outside and I would love to sleep. I walk outside and I take the, you know, 2,000 foot, that might be exaggerated, I'm really bad at numbers. I walk to the barn. We'll go there. I walk to the barn, and one thing I try to recognize is I really try to be mindful of the beauty of the environment. So yes, I have a task at hand: water, feed, do stalls, put the horses out. But every morning I stop and I listen, and I just smell the air, which sometimes is full of horse poop, and sometimes the wind is blowing the other way and it smells wonderful. So I will take in the sounds of the birds, the sound of the brook, and then I just wait. And every morning fire greets me, and I wait for that greeting, and I just close my eyes and I hear my horse neigh to me, and it just sets kind of like that fire in my heart, no pun intended, because it's fire.
I love it.
But it sets the tone for me. And every morning I'm able to set the tone of my day, hearing her just whinny and greeting me. And Luna has started to do it too, and Clover can't see above the stall, so she has no idea what's going on. Or she might join it as well.
Right.
But so walking out to the barn or driving to the barn, wherever your horses are located, taking a second before you just go right into task mode and grounding yourself and coming in with the purest intention and the best and most present intention with your horses has been so helpful. Yes, we all live so beyond busy lives. We have stress, we have anxiety, we have depression, we have work, we have mother-in-laws. There's a lot. So taking a minute to appreciate the surroundings, you know, whether you're arriving at your barn and, you know, there's multiple horses neighing to you, or, you know, it's spring and you can smell the pollen, which gives people allergies, but it's still a beautiful thing. Bees need it. That's what I do in the morning and really try to...
I love you. I love this. Yes.
It's the God's honest truth. But being present in the morning and waking up and having pure intentions and setting the pace for the day is so important. Having your cup of coffee, I'll bring my coffee out to the barn. I usually forget that it's out here and have to make a second trip, but it's totally fine. Enjoying the coffee, enjoying the weather, even on the cold days. Appreciating the steam, I want to call it smoke, but it's not smoke. The breath coming out of the horse's nostrils and listening to the sounds of them chew in the morning and just being with is so important. They're setting no expectations other than just purely being with your horse is so detrimental to the relationship. Another thing that I find, and actually you and I have talked about this, every night, even if we have had a not so great day with one of the horses, or Fire has been extra outspoken, or I just cleaned all the stalls and I'm ready for, to turn out the lights and somebody makes a big steaming pile of poop and I have to go back in and clean that, I always tell my horses I love them. And I name each and every one of them. I don't group them. I love you, Fire. I love you, Clover. I love you, Luna. They all get kisses and they do get carrots. Some people might not agree with that, but sorry.
Sorry.
They love their carrots. They know the sound of the tap, and they literally have recognized the sound of the fridge in the tap room opening, and everybody's nose turns away from their hay bag and just waits.
Yeah.
Little knickers and whinnies, and that sets the tone for going to sleep. So every interaction, I always try to leave positive. Even if something negative happened, or I was anxious most of the time, or I was in a bad mood, I never try to project that onto them, and always have a good and positive takeaway, especially with Luna, who, was a once wild Mustang, who we're really trying to train to be 100% gentled. Every interaction with her is so important, and leaving it in such a positive light. Even if it's a 5-minute lesson of, I brushed your bad side for 5 minutes and we ended on a positive note, that's fine. A shorter positive lesson with the horses is better than a longer, more intense, but a negative feeling on the horses, in my opinion.
Yep.
I use a lot of grounding techniques with clients. If that was something that you were interested in, I actually have some of them in here.
100%. Do it.
Share some of those.
I love that.
A lot of people ask, Krista, I'm feeling very anxious. And I've read places that when you're anxious, a horse can read off of that and they're not going to like it. It's not going to feel good for them.
Right.
And everyone comes wanting the horse to want to be with them. I totally get that. I would love for my horses to want to be with me constantly. Rhythm is so important with getting our body grounded and regulated. I learned this from natural lifemanship, which I'm trained in. Taking a lead line and just literally circling it, hitting the ground, hitting the ground, hitting the ground, hitting the ground. Creating rhythm is very helpful for our bodies and feels safe and secure, which then feels safe and secure for the horses. Another thing that I will use are these little sticks, which some people might think are odd. I think they're super cool, and I've had a lot of individuals really enjoy them. I forgot the name of them. Do you remember the name of these? Have you ever heard of these?
Pendulum, right? Or no?
Some kind of D stick.
But you can use it in a pendulum type way where energy and stuff like that too.
So right now, they're actually pointing to my computer screen, which is interesting. But this helps individuals focus on where, a lot of the times the sticks will point directly here because there's energy vibrating off of them.
Yeah.
So when get these sticks kind of to equal out and regulate,
right,
it takes the pressure off of them kind of focusing on that and more so focusing on the sticks, allowing the individual to regulate. I'm also use an ocean drum, which I wish I had. I didn't bring with me. It's in my office in the house, but it's a drum that looks similar to this. And it actually has, I think I showed it to you.
You did. You let me mess with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Closing your eyes and it's full of little metal beads, I guess you could call them.
Yeah.
And you create the sound of the ocean and you create rhythm. It's fantastic. This lovely tool I did get from Natural Lifemanship. It's an Indian drum, buffalo drum. And it's just, you're just creating rhythm. It's also,
that sounds beautiful, actually. I love that sound.
I'll have people sit in the riding arena or in the round pen before they start to interact with the horse if they're feeling very, very anxious, and just sit and breathe and sit and breathe and just allow the vibration to kind of emote through your body. It really helps people feel more grounded and then feel more centered and more present to then be able to work on connection with the horses.
I love that. Thank you for sharing those tools with us. It's really cool to think about rhythm because it's something that we maybe subconsciously know is part of our riding and part of the horse's movement, but it's something that we very often disconnect to, that it is actually rhythm. That rhythm plays a part in not only what we bring, but also what we share with our horse. So I think that's phenomenal that you brought that up. But we are getting to that time to wrap up, but I do have a couple final questions to ask
Sure.
you, I want to be respectful of your time. This question is something I ask all my interviewees, and it's kind of like my fun question that a lot of people like to mess with. So it's called my 3 gold nuggets question. If, God forbid, the internet broke and all of your work with horses that you put out and all the things that you've done with horses, your education, everything, if everything disappeared, vanished from the earth, but you could leave 3 truths that could be potentially helpful for people that, come after us, what would those 3 truths, those 3 gold nuggets, 3 pieces of wisdom that you could leave behind if everything that you've ever done with horses had disappeared? What would those 3 be?
Absolutely. So it was very hard to narrow it down to 3 because, the knowledge up here is intense. But the first thing that I did write down when you had asked this was horses always communicating with you, and it's your choice to listen to them. And that's so important because we have the choice to ignore it, or we have the choice to listen and take the time to observe, which also can relate into human relationships. We have the choice to listen. A lot of the times we don't make the choice to actively listen and we just react. Second piece, which kind of ties in, but it's different, is horses don't try to be difficult. They're just trying to be understood. They do not have a voice like we do, so they only communicate with us in ways that feel safe and good for them. And they're not trying to be spiteful or mean or aggressive or difficult. They're trying to teach us their language and teach us their boundaries. And that's so important that we choose to listen to them, understanding them, and recognizing they're not trying to be giant jerks.
I love that. That's an important piece. Love it. Okay, number 3. Let's hear it. I know what's in there.
Number 3, and this is something that is very personal to me because it was something I struggled for a very long time. It's okay to not ride your horse. It's okay to just go for walks with them. It's okay to sit in the field and read a book and have them be present with you. It's okay to brush them. It's okay to just be with them. It's okay. You don't even have to own a saddle. You don't have to own a bridle. You don't have to own a saddle pad. You don't have to ever think of riding your horse. And that's okay. And I think a lot of people need to hear that. I see it come up pretty frequently where people start to feel bad that they're watching other people and they're comparing. But don't compare your beginning to somebody else's middle. Where we are within our areas and our own independent areas of success is all different. And that's okay. Those people that are jumping, 6-foot rails or fantastic ropers or, can take any horse and ride any horse, they had to work very hard to get there. And just because you're not there, or maybe you don't want to be there, that's okay. And I honestly, I needed to hear that from somebody to say it's okay to not ride your horse. And I think that's an important message.
I think you're 100% right. I can't tell you how many clients I have that literally just have such a passion for horses that they just want to take care of them. And I think it's important to not judge that either, just because maybe you're riding and somebody chooses to have a horse that isn't riding. It's not a waste of a horse and it's not a waste of a horse person. I think it's an incredible piece of wisdom. And to respect that, there's another horse person in the world that's taking care of horses and they're devoting their attention and their choices to the care of that horse. And even though they're not being ridden, it doesn't make them any less of a horse person or any less of a horse lover. And I think that is something that I know a lot of people need to hear.
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah. I've seen just a lot of people struggle with physical limitations, mental limitations. And horses have those too. Horses have physical and mental limitations. So let's just work together. If you're struggling, I'm not going to force anything onto you. And if you're struggling, I'm not going to force anything to you, but we can still be together and we can still be connected. If there was a fourth way to kind of slip just one more piece of very valuable information that could, just trickle down with those other 3 nuggets, I would say, and I know this is kind of again, something that's talked about a lot, is always the horse before the career or before the sport. That's the most important piece. Sometimes we get wrapped up in what we want them to do or what we're asking of them, and they might not be ready that day or want to or willing that day. And respecting them or expectations of them is important.
Huge. That's huge. I love that you added that. I love that.
It just slipped through the door as the door was shutting. So, and wait, one more. That's it. I promise. That's it.
That's perfect. I think that's perfect. And I think that's a very important piece to say too, is that don't forget the horse. And actually, my farrier who I had on a couple weeks ago, he said something similar where he said in his training, the guy who trained him said, and don't forget the horse. Yes, you're going to be looking at the feet. Yes, you're going to be trying to find the best angle to make the feet. But don't forget you're working with a horse. And so that just totally aligned with that, is when you're competing or when you're training or when you're getting a horse from green to riding, don't forget about them and don't forget to put them first. And I think that's huge. I love that you added that in. That's a huge piece that people need to remember. Put them first. Don't put human expectations on an animal. Just put them first and see what their needs are first.
Can I share one last piece and you can choose whether or not you want to cut this out or not?
100%, yes.
I think I'm going to share a little piece of a session that I actually had yesterday that responds with this, that I think is important for people to hear, and just kind of also giving in some insight into what does a trauma-focused equine-assisted psychotherapy session even look like. It's not just being with the horse, but there's a lot that comes out of being with the horse. The type of therapy that I do is all about connection and not about control. The individual that I was working with, and she gave permission for me to share pieces of this story, so I just want to put that out there. Absolutely no identifying information will be given. All confidentiality will be respected. Long story short, as far as this individual, she's been working with Fire for probably about 2 months. Every time that we've worked with Fire, I have haltered Fire. Fire trusts me. We have a connection. Fire puts her head into the halter. We move forward, and then we do our sessions out in the field or in the riding arena. So yesterday, I did ask this individual, are you comfortable trying to halter her yourself? And she was very excited. She said yes. Fire immediately said no. Where a lot of people's thoughts might go is, well, then, Krista, you go halter the horse and then give Fire to the individual. Not necessarily. There's a reason Fire is saying no, and we need to listen to that. We need to respect that. We need to work with that, and we need to understand what it is that she's saying no. We started to work on body regulation, ground up regulation, breathing. This individual identified that she hadn't taken a full breath in 5 minutes. She was very anxious, and it was just resonating off her. I could feel it. Fire was all the way down, far away from us, down into her turnout. So we worked on just breathing and just recognizing when we're holding our breath and how much tension that's holding our shoulders. The cool piece of this was we walked down to Fire. We really worked on breathing. I will usually try to role model breathing, so I'll do it. Usually the individual that I'm working with will hear it, and that'll cue them to do it. The cool thing yesterday was I did it. The individual I was working with was like, and then we hear Fire go, and she was, and it was just like completely in a row. So cool. And as this individual continued to do that, Fire just released left and right. She was licking and chewing, and then she yawned probably 10 or 11 times and was just releasing and releasing and releasing all this tension. And the two of them working together to release this tension, I actually took a step back and allowed them to be in their own space and release that together and recognize the safety that they could have together. We did work on pressure release, so I would have the individual hold the halter up, standing shoulder to shoulder with Fire, just to help Fire recognize, hey, this is what we expect, but we're not going to force it on you. We're going to allow you that choice, and we're going to hold space for your opinion of this. Fire did not let this individual halter her the entire session, but that wasn't the point of the session. The point of the session was that this individual really struggles with being in relationships, friendships, partnerships with people, and when they seemingly don't do something she asks them, she feels very rejected. And this felt like a rejection. This felt like she doesn't want to be with me. She doesn't like me. When working through that, it was not necessarily a rejection, more so of a redirection of, I'm not comfortable with this. Fire saying, I'm not comfortable with you haltering me, which when we think of a halter, it gives us a lot of control over a horse. And Fire knows when she's haltered, she's usually leaving her turnout. Her turnout is her safe place. She didn't feel safe enough within this relationship to allow that within the relationship yet. I took the halter, I took the lead line, and I said, practice just being with her. See what she consents to. Fire consented to all types of booty scratches, all types of wither scratches, neck scratches, belly scratches. She said, I'm okay with this. This is where I'm comfortable. The client's expectation where she felt safe was to halter her and bring her out into the field and let her eat grass and do our therapy session out there. Fire was able to communicate, I'm not ready for that yet. Please respect that. I'm going to tell you in a healthy way by removing myself from you or not allowing you to put that near me, but still having that expectation there of this is what I'm asking for, but I'm not going to force it onto you. So to kind of wrap up, after every single session, I usually take about 10 minutes and talk to the individual. This person was able to recognize Fire and her are very similar in the sense they both had interpersonal traumatic relationships, and Fire being with humans, and obviously the individual I'm working with also with humans. And I asked this individual, when you build relationships, do you just jump right into them and get led wherever they go? And she said, absolutely not. Like, that feels very scary for me. I have to take it very cautiously and work my way into it to allow trust to build within the relationship because of what has happened. She was able to connect that to Fire, and Fire saying, hey, I'm not ready to be led everywhere that you're going. I need time to build this relationship up, but this is what I consent to, and this is what feels safe for me. Let's compromise. We can be together and spend time together, and you could touch me, but in here, not out there yet. It was just super cool.
Wow.
Watching kind of the ability for the two of them to release stress together, watching that connection to the relationships kind of work itself out throughout the session. And one really important piece that I do with every single session, I'm sorry I'm losing my voice, it's the heater, the window being open.
You're fine. You're fine.
The last piece that's very, very important that I do in every therapeutic session when I use the horses, or when I ask the horses to participate, is I tell every client, are there things that you're holding that only a horse can hold with you? They're big, they're strong, they're magnificent. Spend 5 minutes with them and allow them to hold that with you if you're not ready for me to hold that with you yet. So those horses out there are holding so many secrets and have so many people confide in them, and they're the safest person. Yeah, they're people. They think they're people. The safest beings to be able to hold that for some people that even this therapeutic relationship isn't safe enough yet.
That is so beautiful, Krista.
It's powerful. The work is just very, very, very powerful. Even when you go in with the expectation that this is what we're going to do, the horse tailors the session. She knows what's best. And I can say she because they're all mares. The girls know what's best. The girls know what's needed because they are 100% more present than I could ever be.
I love that.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
That's awesome. That is really, really, really awesome. I love that. And that story is beautiful. I think a lot of people will get so much out of you sharing that. So I really appreciate you, and you can thank your client for allowing us to hear that story, because that's beautiful, and that's just going to serve her in her growth and her journey as you guys work together. And I love that. I'm really grateful you shared that with us.
That's just one experience. The work just extends above and beyond. So if it was ever something that anybody wanted to learn more about, there's a lot of information out there. I do offer, times for people to come out and meet the horses and kind of explain what a session looks like, what the work looks like. It's very powerful. And if it's ever something somebody's drawn to, I think the last question was kind of what words of advice would I have for people? Don't let that fear of this is too much for me to possibly be able to learn or do or afford, or it's going to take too long, ever prevent you from continuing to follow this. Because yes, this has been probably 9 years in the making for me, but the outcome and the journey was what got me here. It's not the goal, but it's the journey that you pick up on, and you learn, and you meet people, and you connect, and you identify where your true passion is throughout that journey.
Totally.
Get to that goal. So even if you're a small, single little person like I am, you can still make big, like you are, and make big change in people's lives. And, you don't have to be this giant organization, or your name doesn't have to be everywhere. Your name just needs to be where it's meant to be. And that's in the certain people's lives that you're going to touch. So it's incredible.
I absolutely love that. And so I do have one final question to ask you, Krista. But before I do, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. And I honor you, and I honor what you're doing. I love what you're doing. I love the growth I've seen in you just in the last few years, just as a human being with your horses, and that relationship being fostered and growing as well, and your horses experiencing this incredible life with you on your farm. Just everything that you're doing is just in full circle a beautiful thing for their experience, but also your experience and the clients you both get to impact is quite beautiful. And I love that you're doing this, especially, you know, with the horses. And I think it's going to impact a lot of people. And I can't wait to see what the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years bring as, you know, as we know each other and grow and expand ourselves. And I'm really huge supporter of you. And I'm thankful that you took the time today to come on and impact us with what you're doing. So that leads to my final question, which is, what is a piece of empowerment? What is something empowering? If you were sitting across from a young person or even an older person in the horse industry, what's a piece of empowerment that you can share with them, whether it's a quote, whether it's a one-liner, whether it's, you know, you name it, anything that could empower them, what would that thing be?
That is a really good question. I think the most empowering thing that I would tell someone, because it can be looking at starting a business or looking at starting anything, feels very, very, very overwhelming because there's so many pieces, there's so much advice. The internet provides us, sometimes at a fault, so much knowledge that it's like, where do I even start? What I would offer is start with your passion and build the steps down from there. If your passion is mental health and horses, build the steps down from there. Look into, for me, it was looking into getting schooling and then licensure and then supervision and then getting trained in equine psychotherapy, all while also potentially building the connection with your horse or the horse that you're going to be using within the session. Take it in, no pun intended, take it in stride. Take it in stride, one step at a time, because if you look at the whole mile that you have to run, it's going to feel very exhausting and very overwhelming. Look at it at each step and take in that surroundings within each step. You know, it's not about the goal, it's about the journey. I think that would be it's not about the goal, it's about the journey. Nice, and the goal is an incentive, but where you're truly taking things in, where you're truly learning, and the meat of what it is that you're doing is found throughout that journey.
That's absolutely perfect. Brush that shoulder. No, I love it. I think everything that you gave us today is packed with value, and I think a lot of people are going to get so much from it. Yeah, and I love like I said, I love you sharing that story, and I love you in general.
Thank you.
I appreciate you so much, and keep going with what you're doing with Strides of Hope. And how do we find you, and how do we support you moving forward in whatever projects you have going on? Can you share a little bit about that with us, and how do we find you? How do we reach out? How do we support you?
Like I said at the beginning, support in the form of an indoor arena, never opposed. More realistic support. I love followers on my business page on Facebook, Strides of Hope LLC. There's beautiful the outline of a horse. I mean, looks like this is my profile picture. I love support. I do post Luna's Motivational Monday, where she always provides us with a lovely approach to the week, which most people despise Monday mornings. So it's nice to see her beautiful buckskin Mustang face and a nice inspiration to get us through the week. Then we do have Wisdom Wednesdays with Clover, who she's always got something smart to say up her sleeve. Even though she's this big, she's wise beyond her age. So that's always enjoyable to continue to get us over that hump. And then, Friday we have Fire's Feels, which is another nice, deep, impactful quote with Fire. So I always try to post information on there. When clients give me permission, I will post, some incredible stories or experiences or sessions that we have, or just insight into equine psychotherapy, and also pictures and updates of the horses. That is always wonderful.
And you have on site too, right? People can go to visit.
I do. That is on Psychology Today. You search Krista Kennedy LPC. That's on there for referrals. I am currently completely booked, so I'm not accepting new clients. I always am every once in a while having openings. So, reaching out every so many months or something and kind of seeing if we can fit you onto the schedule is always something nice. There is a process of me kind of getting to know you and me kind of assessing the safety and the appropriateness of the fit of working with the horses. It's not for everybody, and it's not for every type of situation. As nice as it is to hang out with a horse, it is still therapy. Kind of assessing people before I just bring them right out to the farm, and other individuals' comfort levels with being around them, and just making sure it's a right fit. So I am on Psychology Today. I do have my business page on Facebook. I do have an Instagram account It's the same information on Facebook or Instagram. I've recognized that certain age brackets follow either or. That's about it. I'm too old for TikTok, aka I just don't understand it or have the time to create it. Maybe someday, but
Love it.
yeah, that's
Very cool.
That's a wrap.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. So much love to you and what you're doing. Love to the girls too. We will definitely be doing this again. I would love to have you back on again and have another conversation with stories too.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.
Have a good one.
Later. All right.
Bye.